All right, let's just get this going here. Make sure I did this right. Yep. Okay, great. There it is. Hey guys, how you doing today? Good morning. How's everybody doing? Wanted to talk to you today about some exciting AI updates. And I know we've been talking almost every day about this stuff, and some of you are probably thinking, "Man, Mark, this is just a lot. My head is spinning. How do I keep up with all this? I don't know how to use all this stuff." So what I want to do today is just kind of give you like a little recap of all the new things happening because a lot of them are very cool features and functions, but they're also important. So we'll start off with ChatGPT. I think most people are using that personally, some even professionally, like myself. And the things are, first off, ChatGPT is coming out this week with a new live audio model. And if you've ever talked to ChatGPT and had a conversation with it, um, you notice that it was good for sure, but it was kind of clunky. Like it wouldn't talk like the way you and I are talking. You had to wait and then it would respond, and sometimes it wouldn't understand you. So they fixed all that. And the way that they advertise it is as if you were speaking to a friend, like you and I are speaking, and it's much more natural. Now, the reason why you want to use a tool like that, what I mean a tool like that, I mean speaking, is because we've just conditioned ourselves. We've gotten so used to sitting in front of a computer and typing. But sitting in front of a computer and typing is not really natural. And remember that the goal for these things is natural language processing, or just natural. And it's much more natural to flow, to just talk. And as you talk, it goes back and forth with you and it does what you want, especially when you have it hooked up behind the scenes to skills, to automation, to agents, to events, and you're just talking to it. There's even a setting in the voice settings where you can set it so that every time you open up the application, it opens in voice mode. And so if you have it on your phone or your computer, so let's say you have it hooked up to SIRI, you have it hooked up and you have a workflow on your phone and you say, open this. So now you're just talking. It opens up and immediately you go into talking on ChatGPT. So very important, very cool, very powerful. In addition, if you like the audio speaking, there is another product out there called Whisper Flow. Whisper Flow will hook up into all of your devices, all of your applications, and it will allow you to just talk to them. And the reason why it's called flow is because then it gets you into a flow state. You're just talking, and all the ums and oohs and ahs and buts, it recognizes that and it will filter all that stuff out. So that's another option for you. Another great thing about ChatGPT coming out this week is they're coming out with three new models. Those new models will be an update. Obviously, one will be super heavy duty processing, heavy on tokens. One will be a little less. And then there's one in the middle. So let's talk about what's going on with Claude. So Claude has released this week a cloud-based version so that you can control Claude Cowork or Claude Desktop from your phone. So previously through Claude Dispatch, you could control Claude that was installed locally on your desktop or your laptop from your phone. But the condition was that your laptop, your desktop had to be on and running. So you kind of needed to configure your personal computer or your business computer sort of like a server if you didn't have your own personal server to connect to, which most people don't. Now, the great thing about what they just released is that it will spin off a cloud session. In other words, your computer can be completely off and you can still control it from your phone because it's going to spin off a cloud session. And so that is very exciting because it allows you to, from your mobile device, cool. Everybody's talking about is Fable. So they've extended Fable, so it's continued affordable a little while, and then after that, the team extend based model, and it's going to be very expensive. Okay, So speaking of token-based models and things that are expensive, as we've talked about in the past, I personally believe that everyone should have a OpenClaw account set up for either their personal stuff or their business stuff. And you can set up OpenClaw on your physical device, or for Amazon, for a couple bucks a month, you can have your own personal server where this stuff runs totally safe and secure. If going the Amazon route sounds a little intimidating, sounds a little scary to you guys, you can install this stuff just on a simple Windows laptop, a Windows desktop. You don't need a Mac Mini like you see everybody talking about on the internet. You could use a Mac Mini. There was a guy that strung together 5 of them, and he has, more compute and more processing power than, some of the best cloud services. But you don't need to go that extreme. You could simply install it. So why are we talking about this? We're talking about this for the purpose of using auto routing features. So imagine a scenario where you could say, you know what, I want it to use ChatGPT. It has access to all ChatGPT's model. I want it to use Claude. It has access to all Claude's model. I want it to use Gemini. It has access to all of models. I want it to use Grok. It has access to all of Grok's model. By the way, Grok is releasing something this week that will be comparable to Claude's latest Opus version. So that'll be very exciting. And I forgot to tell you, NVIDIA has launched its own open source LLM to compete with both ChatGPT and Claude. And so this is going into why I'm talking about having low cost token options. Because as these players start to compete with one another and get into the physical chip space, their competitiveness is actually good for regular guys and gals like you and me, because the more competitive they are, the more it's going to make these models more affordable. So let's get back to OpenClaw for a second. So now your OpenClaw has access to the NVIDIA models, ChatGPT, Claude, Google, maybe even the global models. So we're thinking about things like DeepSeek, we're thinking about things like Moonshot. So it has all access to every single provider, all the top tier providers, the 5 of them or so, and it's set in an automated way. What do I mean by an automated way? What I mean by an automated way is when you ask it simple queries, or you ask it to read an email or give you a summary or run a simple scheduled event on a time, something that's not going to take up a lot of tokens or a lot of what I would call processing power, it will automatically route that to a less cost effective or a free model. And it could be any of the models like I mentioned, ChatGPT, Claude, Google, DeepSeek, Gemini, NVIDIA, any of them, versus something that's much more process intensive. So let's say there's a piece of software that you like out there, and you want to backwards re-engineer that software and customize it just specifically for you, for your clients or your business. In order for it to do that analysis, that's very heavy duty. It's going to route it to something more powerful, maybe like a Fable, like a Mythos or something, or the new model that ChatGPT is rolling out. Why is this important? Well, if you have unlimited funding, if you have unlimited budget, and if you don't really care about that stuff, if you're, in my words, if you're wasteful, then yeah, let it just always use the most expensive model and use the most expensive processing power. In other words, you may have a Ferrari in the garage, and that's great. You're going to drive your Ferrari every day? You want to deal with everyday gas and oil changes in your Ferrari? No. Maybe you drive your Ferrari out to special events. Maybe you take it out on the weekend, take the family out. Maybe you take it out for a wedding or a special occasion. And then maybe you have a more cost-efficient, gas-efficient car, an electric car, whatever it is. You don't need to use the most powerful model every single time, but having access to it is important. So you set up your OpenClaw account. You set it up on your laptop or your desktop. You set your laptop or your desktop up to be on during the day, a little before you wake up, a little before you go to sleep. And then when you're sleeping, it goes to sleep. So it's kind of like having the best of both. It will automatically route to the most cost-efficient models. And the last thing I want to say, there are plenty of repositories, skills, and I'll call them configurations that have already been set up, because this stuff has been out there for a while. Remember, AI really started first being commercialized in 2023. That there are repositories, configurations on GitHub where you can just download the GitHub repository. You can read the reviews. You can filter through these things like you would an Amazon product to see What are people saying about it? What has the best reviews? How can I make this thing the most safe, the most secure to automatically spin off agents? And I don't have to worry, is this thing working 3 agents? Is it working 6? Is it working 60? You don't need to care how the engine works. You don't need to know the timing and the firing of the cylinders. Maybe you do know, and maybe you're in the business of configuring engines, so to speak, in my analogy here. What you need to know is how to start the car, how to drive the car, and the rules of the road to get to your destination in the most safest way possible, in the most pleasurable way possible to enjoy the ride. And so if you have an open claw that automatically spins off sub agents and is doing it in the most cost effective way and automatically routes the query based on the model to use the most token cost effective, cost efficient way, and you set limits. So some of you guys are going to set limits to say, don't spend more than 2,000 a month. Don't spend more than 200 a month. I have mine to set, it doesn't spend more than 20 a month. And it prompts me periodically to tell me what my limits are. So I am in total control. This gives you options. This gives you the best of both worlds. Now you're not dependent on ChatGPT or dependent on Claude or dependent on Google or dependent on DeepSeek because you have access to all of them. And if one of these models or one of these service providers ever goes down, you don't care because it'll just reroute to the next model. If it's going to be wasteful with the tokens, you don't care because it's going to use the most cost-effective way possible. If it needs to spin off sub-agents, you don't care. Let it spin off sub-agents. It's going to do things in the most efficient way possible. And these are very simple configurations, very simple settings. In an automatic. So yeah, there's a lot going on. And I know we've been talking almost every day. And I know a lot of you guys, you're probably thinking, man, my head is spinning. I can't keep up with this stuff. How do I, test out all these features and functions? How do I use this in the most efficient way possible for my job or in my personal business? And we'll cover them again quickly. So the moral of the story is all of these providers, so ChatGPT, Claude, Google, NVIDIA, all of these providers are going to keep coming out with the best and latest and greatest. And because they're all in competition with each other, you're going to use that competition to your advantage to say, okay, well, ChatGPT just rolled out this new live voice feature. I can use live voice for this, but Claude just rolled out this new cloud feature where I can control it from my phone. I can use Claude for that. NVIDIA just opened this new open source LLM model. I'll use that. Or I'll connect everything like I'm recommending through my OpenClaw account to have it automatically route to be the most cost efficient, the best routing, multi-agents, and I don't have to keep trying to configure these things. I could just go on to GitHub, see who's already doing what I'm doing, see who's already been working on this, already figured it out, and download configuration files and just plug those in and do that in the most safe and secure way. Okay, so that is the sum of everything that's going on. If you want to talk more about this stuff in depth, give me a shout out, give me a call. I would love to talk to you guys about this stuff. I find this stuff fascinating. I totally geek out on it. Or if you want some help configuring it in your personal business or in a professional environment, give me a call. I'd love to work with you to help you out. All right, let's talk again soon. And remember to hustle harder. Have a great day. Bye-bye.